Hello, everybody, and welcome to AJTV. We are on episode 12. A bit of a long one today, so I am going to cut it up into two parts. We're going over game one of the quarterfinal match from Pro Tour Born of the Gods in Valencia between Lee Shi Tian and Anssi Alkio. Whew! It's been a while. How's it going? Yeah, been away, been busy doing, personal, like, real life stuff, including moving. You can see this is not the same place. Have yet to decorate. Probably see that too. Yeah, but I'm back streaming again, doing videos and all that good stuff. So here we are. I wanted to do this video like really quickly, maybe right after the Pro Tour or the week after that. But I got crazy sick, like this unreal flu. Like I'm on day 12. You can probably hear I'm still like nasally, and it just knocked me out. But the show must go on. So yeah, here we are, and let's begin, gentlemen and ladies and smizmars. Here we see Anssi Alkio's deck, Splinter Twin, pretty normal. Just two colors. A lot of people have been splashing white for like Restoration Angel and Wall of Omens, and some people have been splashing green, Patrick Dickman's version with Tarmogoyfs and Scavenging Oozes. Even black, Gerard Fabiano has been saying Grixis Twin is where it's at. The discard spells is what you want. But here we see the normal straight blue-red version. In case you don't play Modern or have been living under a rock or something, this is a combo deck that uses one of these twiddle creatures, Pestermite or Deceiver Exarch, and then you enchant it with a Splinter Twin, tap it to make a copy of itself. The copy untaps the original, which then taps to make another copy ad infinitum, and you kill them with infinite things. Kiki Jiki is just the fifth copy of Splinter Twin. Tap it to copy, the copy untaps the Kiki Jiki, etc. So, this is one of the main Modern decks, kind of the go-to combo deck, because two-card combo, very simple, just 3 mana, 4 mana, win the game. In fact, these two pieces, the Splinter Twin and the Deceiver Exarch, were in Standard together at one point, which R&D has come out to say that they just stone missed it, didn't realize it was a thing. But in Modern, you get some control cards, some card selection, and some protection. On the other side, one more thing to note. Since he's only two colors, he gets to play 5 islands. The 3-color versions usually play like 2, maybe 3 islands, and the 2-color versions play anywhere from 3 to 6. Anssi Alkio has 5, and the reason that that's important is because he's playing against Blue Moon. Namesake card being Blood Moon, which is not that great against Anssi Alkio with 5 basic islands. But this deck is a bit of a weird one. I don't want to say it was a breakout deck, but it was a non-player. It was a bit of a dark horse at the Pro Tour. And yeah, there's some normal control cards, some counters, some bolts, whatnot. I would say that there's 3 defining characteristics of Blue Moon. The first is its land disruption, which comes in the form of Blood Moon and Spreading Seas. I say disruption and not destruction because it doesn't kill them, just turns them off or makes them red/blue. A lot of Modern is fetch land and shock land based, not a lot of basic lands. So Blood Moon, quite good. A lot of free wins, I'm sure, for Lee on the weekend. And if they have their 1 basic or whatever and can cast their spells, then he just Spreading Seas the basic. I would say the second defining characteristic is its creature control package, and by creature control, I mean creature control, like take control of their guys, rather than, playing Wraths or Paths or whatever. Plays Shackles and Threads. Pretty cool way to play control. And then the third defining characteristic is its weird win conditions. It plays 2 Master of Waves and 2 Batterskull, in addition to the Shackles and the incidental kills from Snapcaster Mage. But the main, dedicated win conditions are Master of Waves and Batterskull, which are a bit interesting due to the fact that this is a control deck, and these two cards are both expensive and slow and sorcery speed, which against the combo deck is quite scary to be, tapping low on your main phase when you know that you could just die. So that's a thing that will come up in this matchup, but I would say that the most important card in this game that we're about to watch is Vidalcan's Shackles. And I want to take a moment to talk about it because it is a bit of a weird card. So for starters, if Anssi Alkio were to try and, go for his combo, simple enough, just take it. They can't go off. So having a Shackles in play is pretty annoying for Alkio to deal with. He has a couple of ways to interact with an onboard Shackles. The first of which being Cryptic Command, simply bounce the Shackles. Straight up, pretty normal. The second way is a little weirder. You can use a Deceiver Exarch to sort of kamikaze the Shackles for a turn. Play the Exarch, he gives himself up to tap the Shackles down, and the Shackles player can take control of the Exarch in response, but then the Shackles is tapped, you could play another Exarch or what have you, and go off that way. The third way to interact with it is a little more convoluted, and that's Kiki Jiki. You can... this takes a lot of mana and a lot of specific pieces, but if Lee Shi Tian gets a Shackles down, then you can assume that the game is going to go long, and thus that this is actually a doable thing. But the one-up Kiki Jiki is pretty good against the Shackles because if you have two Exarchs in play and then play Kiki Jiki, obviously he can't activate the Shackles on one of the Exarchs because you just Kiki Jiki the other one. So has to wait till Kiki Jiki resolves, and then you tap it and take the Exarch, and whether the Shackles takes the target or the Kiki Jiki itself, you simply play another Twiddler, untap the Kiki Jiki, and continue to go off in response. So that is one way to do it, but it takes a lot of specific pieces and a lot of mana. Now, I would say the most interesting way to deal with it is actually Pestermite. Now, spoiler alert, this doesn't actually come up in the game, which was a bit disappointing for me because as I was watching the game unfold, I was like, oh man, all this cool Pestermite stuff is going to happen, but it doesn't actually come up. But I do want to take a moment to talk about it because, even though it doesn't come up, because it's a cool interaction, it's pretty interesting, and definitely something that you could face in a modern tournament. So, Pestermite. Actually, let's look at Shackles first. Okay, Shackles, you see that it says the power is, the power is less than or equal to the number of islands, right? So you think that the two things that matter are the power of the creature and the islands. While that's true, it's only true for activating the ability. In order to activate the ability, these two things need to be true. You need to have more islands than they have power. And, and to have the ability resolve. So to have activated it, the target needs to be legal, and then the target still needs to be legal upon resolution. But once the ability resolves, those two things no longer matter. Once the ability is resolved and the creature is controlled, you can, monstrous growth the creature, and the Shackles stays controlling it. You can even boil away all of the Shackles player's islands. Doesn't matter. They still control the creature as long as Shackles remains tapped. In fact, they still control it even if it's no longer a creature. If they take a manland and end of turn, the manland becomes not a creature anymore, the Shackles still controls it. None of this stuff matters. The only thing that matters once the ability has been activated, or once the ability has resolved, is that it remains tapped. All right? So, the normal way to quote-unquote untap a Shackles is to remove it, whether it's bouncing it or killing it or what have you. But with Pestermite, you can actually manually untap it, which is a bit of a weird thing. You can see actually with Exarch, the ability can untap something you control or tap something they control. You can't untap something they control with Exarch. The inverses of these don't work. Just like you can't tap your own thing if you wanted to, I don't know, inspired or something. That doesn't work. It is a very strangely worded magic card, Deceiver Exarch. Pestermite, however, can untap anything. So, you can have your little fairy buddy play Freedom Fighter, you know, cast off the iron shackles of Vidalcan oppression and free the creature underneath it. But then the shackles is untapped. So you have to pick your spot, because if they have 2 mana and can simply reactivate it, then you probably aren't accomplishing that much. One more weird thing about this interaction is that even though you have to target a permanent when the Pestermite resolves, you don't have to choose whether you're tapping or untapping it until resolution. So, say you play Pestermite, ability goes on the stack, you target the Vidalcan Shackles. If the Vidalcan Shackles player does nothing, then you tap the Shackles and the Shackles is tapped. And they can't activate it. If the Shackles player activates in response targeting the Pestermite, even though they control the Pestermite, you still control the ability. And once the ability goes to resolve, you can choose to untap it. You'll get your Pestermite back. But the Shackles will be untapped, so if they can reactivate it, obviously you're not doing anything. So, yeah, pretty weird interaction. One more little note about how these two weird cards interact is that if you untap the Shackles to free a creature, that creature will be summoning sick. So you can't, end step an Exarch, tap the Shackles, they tap it in response, steal the Exarch, you untap, and Pestermite, untap the Shackles, get your Exarch back, play Splinter Twin. You won't be able to tap the creature because it'll be summoning sick. However, there is a little way to work around that, which is if they go to activate the Shackles and then the Shackles is untapped before the ability resolves, when the ability goes to resolve, no exchange will happen. It's not like you gain control of it and give it back right away. The exchange just doesn't happen, and the creature won't be any more sick than it already was. So yeah, lots of weird little ways to maneuver with these cards, but sadly we actually don't get to see it in the match, which is a bit of a disappointment. But speaking of the match, let's get to it. Lee Shi Tian on the play, higher seed, gets choice. Both players actually mulliganed this game, which the coverage just stone didn't mention, and actually caused me a bit of a headache when trying to reconstruct the game, because it took me a while to realize that they both started with 6 cards. But yeah, so the early turns of the game are going to be, generally speaking, Lee trying to not die and Alkio trying to position to win quickly. And then if he can't, then we enter this weird mid-game of hit as many land drops as possible while Alkio tries to construct the perfect winning hand and Lee Shi Tian tries to create the perfect not die hand. I would definitely say that Alkio is the beatdown here, but with Lee's win conditions so expensive and sorcery speed, Alkio actually can go long fairly safely. And I would say that mana advantage is a huge part of this match, and Alkio agrees. He actually Serum Visions there and keeps 2 lands on top. So we see little draw go here. Alkio has a couple of choices for lands. He has a Sulphur Falls and a Stomping Grounds on top of his library. He chooses to play Misty Rainforest here so that if Lee Shi Tian jams a turn 3 Blood Moon, he can fetch out a basic and have access to more blue mana. Now, normally, the Blue Moon player wouldn't be able to tap out here because they'd be afraid to die. But with Lee on the play, Alkio can't have a third, or can't play a 3-drop, untap, play a 4-drop, and win. So Lee Shi Tian is totally safe just jamming shackles here, and the worst that could happen is that it gets remanded, which Alkio doesn't have mana leaks or anything like that. So the worst that could happen is it getting remanded, which I would argue would actually be good for Lee Shi Tian. I think that remand, with the game going long, which it appears like it's going to, remand has a lot more utility and value later on, whereas here to even cast it, he would have to crack his Misty Rainforest, shuffle away the card that he put on top, and get through the remand. Even though he gets a card deeper into his deck, I think that would be slightly profitable for Lee. And even if you disagree with that, I mean, getting him to shuffle away the card that he wants is another little piece of value. So even if you're willing to take the risk of that being slightly unprofitable, if you believe that it is, your downside is like pretty low, right? It gets remanded. It's kind of a break-even exchange at worst. And then if he doesn't have remand, then you have a Shackles already in play, and it's going to be really hard for Alkio to win from that point. So turn 3 Shackles, pretty damn good from Lee Shi Tian there. So we see here Lee Shi Tian plays 4th land and pass back. Anssi Alkio tanks for a second here on end step, but ends up taking the turn back. And untaps, draws, plays a Stomping Grounds tapped, and passes back. Now, once again, Alkio can only do one thing. He has 3 mana up, and the worst he can do is play Deceiver, Exarch, or Pestermite, which Lee Shi Tian would then take with his Shackles. That means that he is free to play his second copy of Shackles on turn 5, which we're actually going to pause here for a moment and look at Alkio's early game. So he cracks Misty Rainforest for Island, plays Serum Visions, keeps these 2 on top. On turn 2, he draws Misty Rainforest, plays Misty Rainforest. I already went over this. He wants to be able to fetch an island if Lee Shi Tian jams a Blood Moon. He doesn't. He plays Vidalcan Shackles. On turn 3, on Ansi's turn 3, he draws his Stomping Grounds and he plays Sulfur Falls, excuse me. I don't like this. I think that this is fine if you're planning on cycling Electrolyze, but as we saw when Lee Shi Tian passed with 4 mana up, Anssi did not cycle his Electrolyze. Now, the reasons for that are A, because he doesn't want to have to crack this Misty Rainforest yet. He wants to know if he can get a duel with it or if he needs an island, but more importantly, he doesn't want to thin his deck because it looks like the game's going to go long and he's going to need all the mana he can get. And secondly, he's probably thinking, like, there's a chance that I could Electrolyze a Snapcaster to buy some time and force Lee Shi Tian to tap low to play one of his more expensive win conditions if he wants to kill me, and thus give me a window to go off. I think that all of that logic is fine, but I think I still cycle the Electrolyze there, and either way, this gets a little awkward. We're going to see Anssi draw Remand for the turn, next turn, and then play Stomping Grounds tapped, which then Lee Shi Tian plays his 5th land and a Vidalcan Shackles, and this is Ansi's hand. Second Vidalcan Shackles, gonna be pretty tough to beat. And with the Stomping Ground coming into play tapped, you can no longer Cryptic Command. So all Anssi can do is use Remand, which he doesn't want to have to use because Remand is going to be pretty good later on. He ends up having to use Remand, and it gets spell snared, which is really awkward because it means that the cryptic command would have gone through. Now, I don't think that you can simply play the Stomping Grounds untapped here on 4. I don't think that that's what you want to be doing, because it turns your cryptic command face up and it's taking 2 damage that you don't really need to take. But more importantly, it just turns your cryptic command face up. Like, what could you be representing here with this 4th mana? I mean, you don't need double remand here. It could be like Snare Electrolyze, but you know, he didn't cycle Electrolyze last turn, so he's not that afraid of it. I don't think that playing Stomping Grounds on 4 untapped is very good. What I would have liked to see from oh wait, excuse me, it was the remand that he drew. What I would have liked to see from Anssi Alkio is to play the Stomping Grounds untapped on 3. He doesn't know his top card, but unless it's comes into play untapped land, then this play is pretty much the same as playing the 4th land untapped, which I think you need 4 mana on turn 4. So you play the Stomping Ground untapped on turn 3. Now this represents a whole bunch of stuff, because it could be a twiddle creature or just cycle Electrolyze, and you don't have to play anything if you don't want to. Although, again, I would cycle Electrolyze here. I think getting a card deeper into your deck at this point is more important than thinning one or holding it for Snapcaster Mage. But I understand, like, I see the ingredients that Anssi put into his cauldron to come up with the decision not to cycle the Electrolyze. I think I would have, but either way, playing Stomping Grounds untapped on 3, it represents a whole lot more and masks your hand a whole lot more, and then you can draw your mystery card, which happens to be a remand, play the Sulfur Falls untapped, and your cryptic command is a lot more masked. I think that that's a bit better. Generally speaking, there aren't that many things that can punish Anssi for doing what he did, but the second copy of Vidalcan Shackles absolutely is one of those things, and I think that this 2 life that Anssi saved versus my line is not nearly worth the chance of Lee Shi Tian just having the second Shackles and being able to punish you. One more thing to note is on this turn 3, you can't just play the Stomping Grounds tapped, because you need to represent something. If you just have 2 mana up, that means that Lee gets another turn to tap out, just like he did on turn 3 with the Vidalcan Shackles. If you give him another turn, he can just play a Master of Waves, and then what are you going to do? So you need 3 mana so that he can't just tap out for Master, because if he taps out for Master, then you threaten to just kill him. Just Exarch, untap, Splinter Twin. So that's why Anssi played his Sulfur Falls to threaten to Exarch and possibly cycle Electrolyze, though he chose not to, rather than the Stomping Grounds tapped, which I completely agree with. I just would have played it untapped so that you have 4 mana on 4 without turning your cryptic command face up. And with that, I'm going to cut it. We're going to go to part 2. So go ahead and, yeah, switch videos.